Vinícius Júnior is the favourite to win football's most prestigious individual award. He faces strong competition from Manchester City's Rodri, though.
Vinícius Júnior was supposed to win the Ballon d'Or. That was the expectation, and that was the narrative.
Amid the pressure and the horrible atmospheres and the personal attacks and the abuse he's faced, and to rise above all of that and be, in my opinion, the best player in the world at the moment, he is absolutely unreal at times.
After carrying Real Madrid through another Champions League run, deciding knockout ties and becoming the most feared winger in Europe.
Belling it quickly out to Vinícius. Mbappe's in the middle. Still Vinícius goes for goal and scores! And Real Madrid take the lead!
And many believe 2024 was his moment.
This is a Vinícius who has performed brilliantly almost every week this year, and everybody is very much on his side. By the way, Carlo Ancelotti, talking post-game, even suggested that this could be a Ballon d'Or winner in the future.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Instead, the award went to Rodri.
In my opinion, he deserved to win the Golden Ball. It was unfair, in my opinion. I say here in front of everybody.
And suddenly the conversation around Vinícius changed. Not just about goals, not just about trophies, but about influence, character, and temperament.
It actually backfires. Vinny, it backfired. All of this, now we're talking about your behavior, not your playing.
Then came the red cards, the touchline confrontations, the racial abuse incidents that made global headlines.
By the end of last season, he'd been abused 16 times in 18 months.
And most recently, the Benfica night on February 17th, 2026, where he scored the winner. Yet the match was overshadowed by another racism allegation, a 10-minute stoppage, and another storm of reaction.
And I heard some people saying, it's always happening with him. Who cares? It's the issue here. Why are you trying to move the subject or the situation? Let's go back to the point. What has been said? It's been said that Vinícius Júnior is a monkey. What are we talking about once again?
So now the question is no longer just about football. Is Vinícius becoming too emotional? Is he being targeted? Is he misunderstood? Or is this simply what happens when a superstar refuses to shrink under pressure? Because beneath the noise, the numbers haven't disappeared. The performances haven't vanished. The big moments are still there. So what is really happening with Vinícius Júnior? This is why his story right now is bigger than a Ballon d'Or and more complicated than most people realize. Vinícius José Paixão de Oliveira Jr. was not born into football royalty. He was born on July 12, 2000 in São Gonçalo, a working-class city in Rio de Janeiro state. His first Flamengo registration form listed him as a left-back. That detail matters. Nothing about his path suggested inevitability. He joined Flamengo's system as a child, juggling futsal and field football before committing fully to the outdoor game. Flamengo quickly recognized his explosiveness and 1-versus-1 confidence. By 16, he made his senior debut, May 13, 2017, versus Atlético Mineiro in Brazil's Série A. Within months, Europe moved. In May 2017, Real Madrid agreed a deal worth roughly 45 to 46 million euros for a player who had barely begun his professional career. At the time, it was a record fee for an under-18 Brazilian and one of the most expensive youth transfers in football history. He officially arrived in Madrid in 2018. Expectation followed him immediately. The early years were not glamorous. In 2018-19, he showed raw brilliance but inconsistent finishing. He scored just 3 league goals in 29 La Liga appearances in 2019-20. He was electric in transitions, but wasteful in front of goal. Spanish media focused heavily on his end product. Opposition defenders targeted him physically. The Bernabeu crowd grew impatient at times. Yet even during that developmental phase, the signs were visible. First Champions League goal in December 2019, scored in El Clasico versus Barcelona in March 2020, 2 goals against Liverpool in the 2020-21 Champions League quarter-final first leg. He wasn't polished, but he was fearless. And under Carlo Ancelotti, something changed. The 2021-22 season was the inflection point. Vinícius finished the campaign with 22 goals in all competitions, more than tripling his previous best. He formed a devastating partnership with Karim Benzema. He became decisive, not just dangerous. Then came the defining moment, on May 28, 2022, in the Champions League final. Against Liverpool, Vinícius scored the only goal of the match. Real Madrid won 1-0, from inconsistent winger to Champions League final match winner in 3 years. That season, he was named the inaugural UEFA Champions League Young Player of the Season. The transformation was technical and psychological. Improved composure in the final third, smarter off-ball positioning, better timing of runs at the back post, and decision-making under pressure. He wasn't relying purely on speed anymore, he was manipulating defenders. The next 2 seasons confirmed it wasn't a one-off. By June 2024, he had scored in 2 Champions League finals, becoming the youngest player ever to do so, breaking Lionel Messi's previous mark. In the 2023/24 Champions League campaign, 6 goals, 5 assists, and named UEFA Champions League Player of the Season. He was also included in the FIFPro World 11 in 2023 and 2024, and won the Best FIFA Men's Player 2024, finishing runner-up in the Ballon d'Or vote. This was no longer a breakout, this was establishment. What makes this rise significant is not just the trophies, it's the developmental arc. 2019 to 2021, unpredictable but inefficient. 2021 to 2022, explosive but still streaky. 2022 to 2024, decisive in elite knockout matches. Post-Benzema era, primary left-sided attacking reference. He evolved tactically too, became Madrid's primary isolation outlet on the left, improved defensive tracking, added better weak foot usage, increased assist volume alongside goal output. He didn't arrive complete, he constructed himself season by season. Vinícius Júnior wasn't born elite. He built it through criticism, expectation, and elite stage exposure before turning 24. And that foundation is crucial, because to understand what's happening now, you have to understand how much he has already carried, and how quickly he rose. By 2024, Vinícius had become exactly what Real Madrid needed. The primary attacking reference in the post-Benzema era, a player who delivered in Champions League knockouts, a winger who had scored in 2 finals before his 24th birthday. The trajectory was clear, the narrative was set. This was supposed to be his moment. And then came October 2024. The 2024 Ballon d'Or wasn't decided by form, it was decided by philosophy. When the final votes were counted, Rodri edged out Vinícius Júnior by 41 points, a razor-thin margin in an award decided by journalists across the world. That detail matters. This was not a rejection, it was a split verdict, and the split revealed something deeper about modern football. Vinícius represented decisiveness. During the 2023/24 season, he delivered 20-plus goals in all competitions for the 3rd consecutive season, 6 goals and 5 assists in the Champions League, direct involvement in knockout stage progression, and match-defining moments in high-pressure fixtures. He wasn't just productive, he was climactic. He shaped narratives in the biggest games. Rodri represented influence. As Manchester City's single pivot, he dictated tempo and possession cycles, anchored defensive transitions, maintained structural balance in Guardiola's system, and scored in high-leverage matches, including European knockouts. But Rodri's value was less visible. His brilliance was systemic. When he plays well, City control matches before chaos even begins. Vinícius creates chaos. Rodri eliminates it. The Ballon d'Or debate became a referendum on which version of greatness matters more. Traditionally, the award leans toward attackers. Goals win headlines, dribbles fill highlight reels, finals are remembered through scorers, but the modern game has evolved. Analytical models now quantify ball progression stability, defensive coverage zones, press resistance under high blocks, and possession retention under pressure. Central midfielders influence, more touches per match than wide forwards. They shape game states rather than finish them. So voters faced a choice: reward the player who controls 90 minutes, or the one who decides 5 critical ones. The 41-point gap suggests the football world is still divided on that answer. This wasn't just another second-place finish. For months leading into the ceremony, the consensus around Vinícius was strong. He had proven knockout pedigree, delivered consistency over multiple seasons, cemented himself as Real Madrid's primary attacking reference, and won the Best FIFA Men's Player shortly after. From a public momentum standpoint, the award felt aligned with him. When it didn't happen, the conversation didn't quietly move on. It intensified. Before the Ballon d'Or vote, Vinícius was the future king. After it, he became the player people began measuring against the crown he didn't receive. That's a different psychological space. When you're climbing, mistakes are forgiven as growth. When you're considered the best or nearly the best, every flaw becomes magnified. Post-ceremony, three things subtly changed. His emotional reactions were scrutinized more closely. Every dip in performance was framed as regression. The complete player debate gained traction. Composure, discipline, influence. It wasn't about whether he was elite. It was about whether he embodied what people expect from the best player in the world. And that expectation is heavier than the trophy itself. That shift matters because it sets the stage for everything that followed. The emotional debates, the disciplinary moments, the scrutiny of body language. The crown he didn't win didn't disappear. It hovered. And sometimes the pressure of a near miss reshapes a career more than the victory ever could. But by the time Vinícius became a global superstar, the conversation around him stopped being purely football. Not because he changed into a different player, but because a repeat pattern formed around him. Elite performance, hostility, flashpoints, headlines. And when the same type of incident happens often enough, it stops being an isolated moment. It becomes a timeline. So here is the timeline, documented, dated and legally grounded. In January 2023, ahead of a Copa del Rey derby, an effigy was hung from a bridge with Vinícius's name, a moment that shocked even people used to football's uglier edges. The key turning point came later, June 16th, 2025. Spain's Provincial Court of Madrid found 4 people guilty of hate crimes and threats in that case. Multiple outlets reported that the sentences were suspended under conditions including apologies and anti-discrimination training, which is important because it shows the legal system treating it as criminal conduct, while also revealing how punishment frameworks can still feel light relative to the image itself. Why this matters in the story. This wasn't heckling, it was a threat symbol that pushed Vinícius' situation beyond football atmosphere and into public safety and hate crime territory. On May 21st, 2023, at Mestalla, Vinícius was racially abused from the stands, and the aftermath became a national and global flashpoint. What makes Valencia central isn't just what happened that day, it's what happened after. On June 10th, 2024, La Liga announced what it described as Spain's first conviction for racist abuse at a football match. 3 perpetrators, 8 months imprisonment reduced through procedural agreement, and stadium bans initially 3 years, reduced to 2 under procedural grounds. That conviction changed the legal precedent, and it changed the weight of Vinícius's public stance. Because from that point on, the story was no longer, he says it happens. It was, the courts have ruled it. On September the 26th, 2024, Real Madrid published an official statement confirming a sentence against an individual for racist abuse directed at Vinícius during Mallorca versus Real Madrid on February the 5th, 2023. The court found the defendant guilty of 2 offences against moral integrity with racist aggravation, a 12-month prison sentence, and a 3-year stadium ban. The prison sentence was suspended after the person apologised and completed an equality and anti-discrimination programme. Why this matters? It shows a repeating legal pattern. Convictions are happening, but often with suspended jail time tied to apology and training conditions. The system is acting, but many observers debate whether it is acting strongly enough. This is where Vinícius's story stops being just player versus crowd and becomes player versus structures. After Valencia, Vinícius publicly called out La Liga and Spain over racism, and La Liga president Javier Tebas responded publicly, then later apologized. Reports confirmed Tebas apologized for his reaction and stressed La Liga's limited legal authority. The league can detect and report, but not directly punish under Spanish law in the way fans often assume. Then there's the player-side escalation. In March 2024, Vinícius broke down in tears in a Brazil press conference, saying racist abuse had left him with less will to play, a rare moment that showed psychological cost, not just anger. In August 2024, he said Real Madrid would be prepared to walk off the pitch if racism occurred again, moving from complaint to a direct collective action threat. This is the institutional core. The more Vinícius speaks, the more he becomes a symbol. And the more he becomes a symbol, the more every incident becomes bigger than the match itself. Now we reach the moment that brings us to February 17th, 2026. Real Madrid won 1-0 at Benfica in a Champions League playoff first first leg. Vinícius scored the winner, then the match was stopped. For 11 minutes after Vinícius alleged a racist slur from Benfica's Gianluca Prestiani, reports confirmed referee François Letexier activated FIFA's anti-racism protocol, and UEFA said it is reviewing the incident based on the official reports. Coverage noted the alleged word mono was at the centre of the dispute, with Prestiani denying it and Madrid players considering walking off. Why Benfica matters. It shows this is no longer contained within La Liga's ecosystem. Even in Europe's top competition, with protocols in place, the same type of crisis can still stop a match and dominate the narrative. Vinícius' story has two parallel truths. He is repeatedly targeted, verbally and physically. He is also one of football's most emotionally reactive superstars. The honest analysis sits in the overlap. The cleanest headline incident is January 2025. Reports confirmed Vinícius received a 2-match suspension for violent conduct after a red card in a league win over Valencia, involving an altercation with goalkeeper Stol Dimitrievski. That moment is important because it fuels the outside narrative. He's always involved. But discipline alone doesn't tell you why he's involved. Vinícius has addressed this directly. Coverage reported he admitted he's no saint regarding on-field behaviour, while also accusing referees of failing to protect him when opponents target him. That quote matters because it does two things at once. It removes the perfect victim expectation. It keeps the core complaint, protection and consistency from officials. If you want to understand why Vinícius lives inside confrontations, look at his style. He dribbles constantly. He attacks isolated defenders. He drives into the box at speed. That combination forces contact. Current season statistics for Vinícius list 48 fouls won, 4 penalties awarded, 5 yellow cards, plus the workload indicators that trigger contact, 1,218 touches, 218 touches in the opposition box, and 54 successful dribbles. This is the footballing logic behind the chaos. A player who wins that many fouls and penalties is constantly being hit, grabbed, blocked, clipped, and asked to stay emotionally neutral the entire time. That doesn't excuse reactions, but it explains why reactions keep appearing in his matches. This is where the temperament versus targeting argument becomes most serious. Vinícius's consistent claim is not "don't foul me," it's "when I'm targeted, protect me consistently." That means earlier cards for repeated tactical fouls, clearer punishment for crowd abuse, and less of a situation where the abused player ends up booked in the same sequence. And Benfica revived that exact frustration. He scores, celebrates, then the stoppage is about abuse. Yet the match still ends with questions about his conduct and the atmosphere around him. This timeline didn't just follow Vinícius, it reshaped his career environment. The legal system has produced real convictions: Valencia, Mallorca, Atletico effigy. The institutional clash made him a symbol, not just a player. And the football reality is that his style guarantees contact, which increases friction and increases scrutiny. So when people ask, why is he always at the center of it? The most factual answer is because the incidents are real, the legal record is real, and his on-pitch role forces him into the hottest zones of the game, where abuse and emotion are most likely to collide. But here's what gets lost in all the noise. Vinícius' story gets pulled into headlines so often that people start acting like the football has stopped. It hasn't. Liga 2025/26, Vinícius has 8 goals and 5 assists in 1,768 minutes, with an average match rating of 7.65 as of February 18th, 2026. Season statistics show the same headline: 8 goals, 5 assists plus 2.7 dribbles per game. In the Champions League 2025/26, UEFA lists him at 6 assists in 9 matches, plus 2 goals, 0.67 assists per match, which is elite production at this stage of the competition. This matters because it establishes the baseline. Even in a season where the conversation around him is constantly emotional, his direct chance creation in Europe is still driving Madrid's outcomes. On February 17th, 2026, Real Madrid won 1-0 at Benfica, and Vinícius scored the match winner, a curling finish that decided the tie's first leg. That's the pattern with him. The more chaotic the environment becomes, the more likely he is to produce the action that actually settles the match. Vinícius isn't valuable only when he scores twice. His season value also lives in the repeatable actions that destabilize defenses. Current statistics list 54 successful dribbles, 218 touches in the opposition box. That combination is a direct explanation for why matches involving him generate so many flashpoints. He is constantly forcing defenders into last-ditch contact zones, with a mid-40% success rate, meaning he attempts enough to keep breaking structures even when efficiency isn't perfect. Expected assists models place him around 0.30 per 90 in La Liga this season, totaling roughly 5.86, consistent with a player creating high-quality chances beyond his raw assist count. And progressive carrying data tags his ball advancement as top tier, aligning with what you see on tape. He remains one of the league's primary ball advances from wide areas into the box. So even if a week goes by without a goal, he can still be winning a match, drawing double teams, forcing fouls, creating penalties, and manufacturing advantages that turn into shots for others. First, growth pains of superstardom. Superstardom doesn't just raise your level, it raises the consequences of your reactions. When Vinícius was talented but raw, emotion was a trait. Once he became Ballon d'Or runner-up caliber, emotion became a storyline. Second, narrative inflation around emotional players. Some players' mistakes stay small. Emotional players' mistakes become symbolic. When you're visibly expressive, celebrating, protesting, reacting, you become easier to package into a simple narrative. He's always involved, but his numbers show he's also always involved in the thing that matters most, deciding games. Third, structural issues in Spanish football and football culture more broadly. The repeated nature of racism cases and now a Champions League stoppage in Portugal shows this isn't just an individual storyline, it's structural. When protocols exist but incidents still repeatedly interrupt matches, the system's deterrence is still not strong enough to make the problem disappear. If you strip away the noise, two truths remain. Vinícius is still producing top-level output in 2025/26. The environment around him, scrutiny, friction, and the persistence of abuse keeps trying to turn his career into a debate instead of a performance. So maybe the most accurate answer to what's happening with Vinícius is this: the football is still there. The spotlight has just become louder than the game.